Amy, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for having
Ah,
a chat to me. It's so lovely to see you again. How have you been? What's been going on?
thank you so much for having me back. I just was doing the math in my head of like, we've been trying to do this for a year. So
Yeah,
obviously life is busy, but when is it not, right? And so many things have happened probably since we last spoke. Nothing that I think, would majorly surprise you, but at the same time, probably little and big things. I mean, look, I turned 40 this year. That's just been an event in itself.
I turned 40 right at the end of last year. Tell me, what was that experience like? Have you made any dramatic changes? Have you had any revelations? Tell me, what was turning 40 like for you?
I think for a long time I was telling myself, oh, I'm so old, I'm turning 40, it feels so old. And now I'm like, no way, life is just starting. Like it feels really great. Look at how much I've done, look at how much more I can do, how exciting to be 40 and living the life that I'm living right now. So in some ways I was a little bit like, am I going to be old instantly? Like what happens? Which I know sounds quite silly because it's just another day, but reflecting on it, it really, because I built some hype around it. I was like, I'm turning 40. I'm going to have 40 little celebrations. I'm going to do lots of things. Like, it's going to be a whole event for a while. I mean, we're still going on with it. But when I started to think about that and think about how I wanted to celebrate that, I realized, gosh, there's so much greatness in life already. And how cool to be going into my 40s, doing what I've done, and knowing that there's even better things to come.
Yeah, I feel like my metabolism's finally caught up with me though.
Oh,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I
But then,
used
like,
to sit at home and just eat half a loaf of white bread and a block of brie and just had the best time of my life. And around my late 30s, I started to feel like, "Oh, I don't know if I can do this anymore." So I'm really thinking about it's sort of hit me for the first time, just the importance, I think, of watching what you eat. Because, when you're younger, you can just do whatever you like. And
I will definitely agree with that. Late 30s into early 40s, just
Mm.
now, I'm like, I probably can't get away with like eating whatever I want all of the time and not really thinking about it. I mean, I've done extreme things. Like I've actually done bikini bodybuilding competitions in my 20s. So I know what it's like to count calories and macros and then to not really do that, but to notice that, yeah, your metabolism slows down. You don't have as much energy. In my head, I'm like, I can do CrossFit again. I can definitely do all of those things. And then I rock up and I'm like, I don't think I can do a box jump anymore. I think we're at
Yeah,
a step up stage.
awesome. Amy, what's a book that's caused you to stop and reconsider a few things? It could be within your area of expertise, or it could be more broadly.
I'm going to answer this question without even having read the book, only because it's right next to me. I feel like this is cheating a little bit, but
Okay,
2 days ago I went to Kmart and bought Brene Brown's new book, Strong Ground.
love it.
I haven't read it yet. All I've read actually is the first piece inside, which is called The Note and Dedication, and it's one page. And I read it and I sent photos of it to friends and I read bits of it out loud. And I thought, if this is what's happening on the dedication page, the book's going to be a lot of stopping, talking, note taking, reflections. So we have not yet really begun, but already it's made me stop and think.
So that's from the first page.
The
You've
first page,
decided that
the
this
first
could be
little
your favorite book.
dedication. It's not even the book yet, it's the dedication.
That's amazing. I was listening to a an interview with her today on the Diary of a CEO.
So I've done that, yeah, same.
Unbelievable. But is there something that you've changed your mind about in your this year? Something that you've gone, you know what? I was probably wrong about that.
Okay, let's go back to the turning 40 health conversation.
Yeah.
I have really struggled with, it's not a struggle. I have learnt to let myself sleep and sleep not using an alarm. And it's a luxury I have when I'm not on the road and I know what it's like to feel well rested and sleep naturally, wake naturally. But I'm really struggling with the idea of I should get up earlier. I should go and get up at 5 a.m. again. And I should be at the gym by 6. And I've just got to let that go. Like I've just not got to hold on to the idea that that means my day is going to be better or I'll be more successful or whatever it is, wherever that comes from. And so I'm continually having this battle in my head around I have to change the way I think about what that matters, what it matters or what it means in order to sleep versus set an alarm and get up and tackle your day from the go. Because I know it's not good for me, but I still have this internal argument with myself of like, you should be getting more out of the day, get up earlier. And I've just got to totally let that go.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And one thing that you've stopped doing in 2025, and if it's doing podcast interviews with people from Sydney, I'll be.
No, I haven't stopped that. What have I stopped doing? I've actually stopped having my social media on my phone always available. So
Mhm.
all of my social media this year has been set to timers. So they're grayed out. I can't access them. And when I click on them, my phone says, do you want to use this for 5 minutes? Because they're all set to 5 minute timers. And so I can open Instagram or TikTok or whatever it is, LinkedIn for 5 minutes. And then after 4 minutes, it goes gray and then it kicks me out after a minute. Now I can override that, of course, but I don't unless I'm trying to post or do something. But that shift in itself this year has really made me aware of how many times I just pick up my phone to go and scroll on socials, or how long I would be there if it didn't kick me out after 5 minutes.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I don't have any social media on my phone because
Oh, I love that.
I'm not disciplined enough. And so I've just decided, you know what, I actually do a pretty bad job of this. I'm just not going to have it on my phone. It's a challenge though, isn't it? And especially in your industry where you work for yourself, so much of
Yeah.
what you do is online. How do you kind of strike that balance of not feeling like you're missing out or feeling like you need to be connected 24 hours a day?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think I learned over time that I wouldn't really miss out on anything if I wasn't there
Yeah.
24/7. And I just now give myself times of the day when I do check it. So in the morning, in case there's anything I need to respond to. This is the same for email as well, right? So email's grayed out, so no notifications, nothing. Check it if I really, like in the morning to make sure nothing's happening. Maybe once during the day, whenever I'm doing admin or sitting down at my desk, and then in the evening. But after like 7 o'clock, we're all done. I'm not going back to it. I would consider getting rid of it, definitely, but I need it for my job. And so I'm constantly in this battle of like, do I not have it? Do I have it? When I'm on holidays, when I travel, I delete them, which is great. But for now, for now and posting and sharing, I do need to be a little bit connected.
Um, Amy, in our last conversation, which was a little while ago, we went into so much detail about your upbringing and your work, and I'll make sure I put links to that in the show notes. But for people that are tuning in for the first time, and I'm aware that there's a whole new group of educators that are listening since we spoke last, how would you explain what you do, and why do you get up in the morning every day and do what you do?
Yeah, great question. I think one of the biggest misconceptions around what I do is that I go in and into schools or workplaces and do nice fluffy things around well-being, and I definitely am not that person. So I am the person that you would seek out or get in touch with if you really wanted to understand what well-being is. So I work in schools, workplaces, keynotes, whatever it is, speaking to help redefine well-being in a way that's practical and tangible, but also pragmatic. And right now, there is so much information out there that is a little bit off or a little bit messy. And I'm the person that says, you know what? We matter individually, our well-being matters, but we've got to take some self-responsibility. Like your
Mm.
school leader's not coming around to tell you what time to go to bed, and they're not going to monitor your diet, so you've got to figure that out yourself. You've got to learn healthy coping and resilient strategies. No one can do that for you. But in a workplace, it doesn't matter how many morning teas you put on. If you're not addressing workload at the same time, what's the point? Or if you're not willing to look at staff voice in a really meaningful way to capture their input, and all you want to do is cancel meetings when everyone's stressed and tired, it's not going to work. So I'm probably the person that says I guess, the hard and cold truths about what well-being really is, personally and professionally, for our own lives and in the workplace, and helps people figure it out in a way that actually makes a difference.
So I guess that leads us quite well to our next question. What is well-being and what are some of the misconceptions? I love morning tea, but you argue that that's not really enough, is it? We need to get to the core of the issue.
Yeah, well, look, it doesn't matter how good that chocolate cake is, it's not going to shorten your to-do list, even though we'd really like it to. And
Yeah,
I'm not saying get rid of those things. Actually, what we need to understand is the purpose of a morning tea or a social event is to build connection. And so
yeah,
that
yeah.
matters. Like you can't deny that that's a key factor of well-being, connection, belonging, mattering. They're all really key elements. But when we call the morning tea the well-being strategy, there's a bit of a disconnect. And we've got to be able to not just put on great morning teas, but look at why we need a morning tea in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. What are some of those, like I said, those misconceptions? Because most schools have a well-being week and we've done our well-being thing and we move on, but that doesn't really get to the core of the issue, does it?
No, not at all. So I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that well-being can be left to chance and it's ad hoc. Like it's the nice things we do when we see people under pressure. And that gets you so far, but it certainly doesn't solve any of the issues or challenges. I think one of the other misconceptions too is that it's a leader's job to fix. It's
Right.
not. It's the work of everyone. Everyone's got to do the work of well-being. And I think the other big misconception that people are now starting to piece together is that it's a workplace's responsibility to make sure someone's well-being is where it needs to be or where they want it to be. It's just too complex and multifaceted and different person to person, workplace to workplace for the statement to be, my workplace needs to fix my well-being. It just doesn't work like that.
And I couldn't agree more. There has to be a level of personal responsibility. There does have to be a level, I think, of personal responsibility. I'm sure we'll delve into that. But your first book, Teach Your Wellbeing, was hugely popular. It's one of the ones that I have gifted away to so many people I work with. You've recently, well, not so recently anymore, you've written a book also on wellbeing leadership. Why
Mm.
did you think that was an important topic to be discussed?
I mean, my first book was all about teachers, educators, leaders, anyone working in an education environment wanting to understand what well-being is. But the leadership element of the book was really to help bring together the idea that there is still work to be done and it's not all about the individual either. And I was coming up with, well, facing misconceptions for other people. Leadership don't care about my well-being. Leaders don't want to do the work. It's a leadership's job. I shouldn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
And I was hearing this over and over, and I thought, you know what, this isn't true and it isn't fair. Leaders are doing the best they can with what they have. We have to remember the well-being area is still relatively new in workplaces. And whilst we might have been doing things for students for a little while, the whole idea of staff well-being is pretty much still untouched. We're trying to figure it out. We don't know how to define it. We don't know what exists under the banner of it. And so there started to be different narratives and stories around, well, leaders should just fix it. And I had, as a past school leader, so much compassion for school leaders coming up against this. And I thought, you know what, they're trying their hardest. Let's put some things together that are going to help them understand who they are as leaders, what wellbeing leadership isn't and what it is, and give them some tools and some strategies and some ideas to be able to do this in a way that is embedded in what they're already doing and not an add-on to the workload that's already really high.
Yeah, I love that. There's so many brilliant points that you raised there, Amy. What's your relationship like with work and managing complexity? And have you always been someone that seems to have a balance and seems to be across everything, or have you got more of a nuanced relationship with these?
I think I have an evolving relationship with it. I mean, in my first book, and we've talked about, I had chronic stress, so there was definitely a time where I wasn't balanced. You know, I was pretty much close to burnout. And even though that experience allowed me to learn a lot, one of my coaches often says, you know, uses the phrase, she says it's the same devil at a different level. So you get to these new levels of self-awareness and of how you're evolving and learning, but then these little things pop up and it's like that little belief that wasn't doing you any good, or this little habit creeps back in. And I, even though I know what I know and, you know, practice and teach and do different things, certainly can fall into the trap of new level, but same old devil creeping up and tapping on my shoulder. Even as recently as this year, I went through in the middle of the year, I think quite an intense point where I was probably doing too much. I had too many plates spinning. I was trying to be everything to everyone. I was trying to do things for myself as well. And it got to a point where I had to make some really big decisions around, what do I want my life to look like? And I think that is the question we all need to ask when we think about, is it balance? What does my well-being look like? Do I feel okay? It's really, what do I want my life to look like? What does it look like now? What do I want it to look like in the future? And so what path do I need to go on to get there? Because if we don't know where we want to go, then we're just sitting in a space of, I don't like it. And that doesn't really help us get out of the discomfort or the pain. We've got to be able to know where we want to go to create what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. And Amy, how do we balance that tension though? Because you're doing amazing things, like traveling all over the place and writing books, and you just mentioned you're about to write your third book, and there seems to be so much stuff happening in your life. How do you sort of personally hold that tension between doing amazing and incredible things and also just sitting at home on the couch? Like, how do you find that
I,
really difficult? I struggle with that.
I have really clear scheduled couch time for sure.
Oh, really? So
uh,
you schedule that?
yeah, I do. You know, most nights by 7 or 8 o'clock, like I'm down and out. I think it's knowing what my foundations are. So if you would know, you talk to lots of people, listen to other great podcasts. look at the self-help movement that exists now or other books. There's so much out there around like key pillars of health. Sleep, nutrition, movement, micro breaks and micro rests are becoming more widely known as really powerful. Making sure that, we're hydrated, that we have good relationships. So for me, I, over the past years, really have experimented and played with figuring out what my foundations are. I know I need somewhere between 8 to 9 hours sleep a night. And if that's not happening, I better be able to have a nap the next day. That's it. And I know I have to move my body morning and evening and do some type of exercise. And I know I need to eat pretty much whole foods. Otherwise, my body just doesn't like it and my energy's not there. So, in terms of tension, I have been really clear with figuring out what my foundations are to help me physically, mentally, and emotionally. Like, if I don't have those three things, my core just isn't right. Like, I'm not who I need to be. And we all think it's like these big magical things. It's as boring as that. Sleep, eating well, moving my body. It might be a little bit different for you or someone else, but you have to figure out what your foundations are and make them non-negotiables. And then other things fit around that. Whether I'm on the road, traveling, away from home, or simply at home, those things happen every day. Like it's not really an option for me to negotiate on those things unless unless I'm international travel and it's a 24-hour flight, it's out of my control. But for the most part, I can control that. And so now I do things like if I'm going to travel, I will book a morning flight because I can't take an evening flight that interrupts my sleep. If I'm going to be rocking up somewhere and I don't know where I'm going and there's no supermarket, I take food with me. I am that person that will take some kind of esky pack on an airplane so that I have what I need. I will negotiate start time so I can get out and do my walk and my moving and get all of that done before I rock up for a day. You got to know what builds your foundations. So then whatever else happens, you've taken care of what you need.
That's so incredibly important. And I think going back to our conversation before about turning 40, I I think I've always sort of really liked exercise and eating well, but for me it was sort of like an optional extra. But
Mm,
now it's not. Like I
mm.
just can't function if I'm not getting the sleep I need, if I'm not eating, if I'm not spending time with my wife and kids. It just feels like something is out of balance. And I think you raised some really important points there. You talk about in your book rethinking everything, which I love that. I love the idea that there are no sacred cows and we need to we shouldn't be too afraid to ask these questions. But what's one belief or assumption about school culture that we think we most urgently need to challenge and change?
I think ultimately it's waiting for the system to change. I
Yeah.
think that story and that belief is so harmful to us right now, and it's stopping us from doing great things. We have, and I know I said it before, I say it all the time, so much autonomy in schools that we're not recognizing or connecting with. And when we sit in the space of the system needs to change, they need to do something different, we're really handing over the power we have to create a great work environment. And I really struggle when I hear that. And it's not, and I'm not saying the system doesn't need to change. There are so many things that need to be addressed at a system level, but that can't be the excuse to not do something now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Are you, what are some of the positive steps? Because I know in New South Wales we have had a whole, it really is a different industry now in terms of some of the things we're starting to implement in terms of staff well-being and social safety. And we have a long way to go, but I think at least we're having these conversations. What's the conversation looking like where you are in Queensland? And what are some of the things that you are optimistic about and also maybe slightly apprehensive of?
Yeah, I mean, I'm having conversations all across the country with
Yeah,
different people.
that's
I go everywhere. Yeah, so I see lots of different things. I think what you raised though is a good point. Like it's different state to state, but it's
mm,
also different system to system. It's
yeah,
different school to school and system to system. Even though we're all doing the same job, we work for different government systems. We have different EBAs, and it is becoming complex and nuanced. But I think one thing I'm seeing in schools that are starting to understand what it means and doing it well is actually taking the voice of staff on. They're having discussions, they're talking, and they're involving staff in the co-design of what their school needs to look like and what needs to happen. I think that's a really powerful piece that many haven't quite harnessed yet. And sometimes we're really good at capturing staff voice, a survey, a form, I run and come in and do sessions, whatever it might look like. But then there is still the piece that people hold on to, which is, well, now a leader needs to fix it. And this is where we're starting to unravel because it's like, well, I said this needs to happen. Now my leader needs to do it. This is everyone's work. The work of whether we're talking about, looking at how staff meetings are structured, we're talking about addressing different workload issues, whatever, it is the work of everyone. I am yet to sit in a room with leaders who are talking about how they want to make things worse. No one is doing that. Every leader wants to make it better, but they're not on the ground doing the work. And so the ability for educators to be able to really clearly articulate what some of the challenges might be under the banner of well-being or psychosocial hazards or workload or job clarity, whatever it is where we need to push a little bit further. Because saying something like workload's really high, it doesn't help anyone. Like what workload? And workload to you versus me could be very different. So we need to know what workload, and then we need to ask, but is it actually a reasonable expectation? And if the answer is yes, then it's actually might be about how the person's managing it. If it's like, oh, we didn't see that, we didn't consider all of these different due dates happening at once or whatever it is, that's on us to review, reflect, and refine.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely, and I'm sure you're familiar with the work by Dr. Adam Fraser. For those that aren't aware, he's doing some really important work in this space. And I was at a conference today, which was unpacking some of his work about around the third space. And Dr. Adam Fraser is not a teacher; he's just researched a lot of teachers, and he said, by far, a school principalship is the hardest job that he has ever come across.
Yes.
And I think when we think about the complexities, you're dealing with big people and little people in school communities and expectations. What do you think are some of the unique challenges that school leaders face that people just wouldn't understand that are not working in that industry?
I think I've been a school leader, as many of your listeners
Yeah.
have. Yeah, like it's hard and challenging, but I don't think we're prepared for it. If you think of a school like a business, which I know people don't like to do, but essentially you are, once you get to that leadership level, you're managing budgets, staffing, building works and construction. You're
Wow.
having to, if you are, lots of schools, you're doing the role of a HR person because it doesn't exist. These things in another industry would be what the CEO, CFO person does because, they have MBAs, they're
Yeah,
trained in those
yeah,
certain areas, that's their area of expertise. As a school leader, you are asked to do these things, but that's not part of your qualification. You're just an awesome educator. And so I think the misconception from the public eye is that there is no understanding of the intricacies that a school leader has to do because you keep the school running. You're
mm,
not actually just in there the teaching and focusing on pedagogy and learning and
great
teaching.
point.
You're managing everything else.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think this is where we're going wrong around leadership because that that could be outsourced. We could have someone else managing building construction or what, if you're getting renovations or whatever it is. And even though I'm sure some people love it and they enjoy that, is that the best use of someone's expertise when actually they're really, really good at, learning, pedagogy, supporting educators, spending time on budget and building projects?
That's a great point. I've been doing my role for about coming up to 9 years now. Gosh, I still feel like a newbie. But I was reflecting with a colleague today and I said, like, we both got promoted because we were good in the classroom.
Yes.
Really moving into an assistant principal role or a deputy or a principal role, it's not a promotion. Like it is a complete career change.
It's a side step.
It is
Like that's not, yeah, right. Yeah, it's
yeah, but it is absolutely not a linear
no.
trajectory into that role. And so I'm really interested in those like sort of transitional moments with classroom teachers that move into leadership spaces and just I remember just how overwhelming it was and how many people I was responsible for and I had to have professional conversations and I had to remember to eat my lunch and it was just so overwhelming and this is why I think I'm so drawn to your work and your recent book because I remember sitting in my car in the first couple of weeks of getting a promotion. We just had a kid. She was tiny. And I just sat in the car and burst into tears because I didn't even know like where to start and what to do and who to have a conversation with about just how hard it was. Because when you're in a leadership role, there's an assumption that you know what you're doing and people come to you and you want to it was just a mess my first couple of years and
Yeah.
I think your work just speaks so beautifully to the complexities that leaders face and also the importance of like you're saying before, about taking that personal responsibility for your own well-being. Because
Yeah.
my job will always be crazy. There will
Yeah.
always be stuff I didn't do. But I think learning how to handle that complexity is so important. And like I said, I read your first book on teacher well-being, then obviously your second one on leadership well-being, and I'm like, oh my gosh, finally somebody that understands just how challenging it is. But Amy, we've talked a lot about some of the challenges, and I know you're a solutions-focused person. I'm all for highlighting some of the challenges, but what your work really does is it gives us a way forward to take back some of that control and that ownership. And you talked about 8 characteristics that empower staff. What are they? Or, in fact, instead of listing all 8, what are some of your favorites? I suppose that's like trying to choose your favorite relative. But
Yeah, look, I'd have to open the book and read them if you
yeah.
wanted me to list them off the top of my head.
But what are some that you go, yeah, like that one's really important? And I don't want to give too much of the book away. I encourage
Yeah.
people to go and buy it. But
I think one of the important ones that we need to really we need to take back as educators is optimism.
I
Being
love
an
that.
educator is it's a great profession and it's a great job. And if you open any type of news forum at the moment or Facebook group page, we are not getting a good rap.
No,
We're
no, we're
not
not.
getting a good rap from the media. We're not getting a good rap, perhaps from government. We're not getting a good rap from each other at times, from the
No.
people in the profession. And when we do that, we're really limiting our ability to be able to see what's possible.
Mm,
Cycle, like from science, if you're thinking in that negative mindset way, in that negative spiral, you can't think optimistically. You can't have hope. You can't have gratitude. Like they don't work together. And so we've got to intentionally start to bring optimism into our work. We actually have to practice gratitude. Sometimes I think these things have gone a bit down the woo-woo space and people are like, oh, a gratitude journal. No, there's science behind it. You can't feel fear if you're in gratitude. That's
yeah.
how it works. And we are so caught up in the doom and gloom because let's be real, our brain likes the drama. It's part of, survival. Let's focus on the problems. It's not getting us anywhere. And I'm
No.
kind of tired of it. So we could get rid of that. And I think the other characteristic that we need to harness, which coincides with this, is actually collective resilience. We know what resilience is. We teach it to kids. We're working on it ourselves, like what's healthy coping. But there is actually a term called collective resilience, which is how we resilient together. How are we holding each other to ensuring that we're using healthy strategies when we're up against an obstacle or a challenge?
Yeah.
Or is our resilient strategy so damaging that we're pulling each other down? So I think optimism and collective resilience are really key in order to move us forward right now.
Yeah. Amy, I'm curious, how do you build in some of those things into your daily life? Do you have a gratitude journal? It's something that I have a fleeting relationship with. I'm trying to get better at it. And if you do have a gratitude journal, what sort of prompts are you using? What questions are you asking yourself to bring that focus back onto gratitude?
Yeah, look, I did have a gratitude journal when I first started trying to get my life back together, really. Like I was in a space of doom and gloom, thinking it was all like falling apart. And so that was when I learned about these different tools and tricks. And I used to sit down and write 5 things I was grateful for. My partner and I would, finish our day with what's one thing we're grateful for about each other. And before we went to bed, I would do those things. I don't do them so much now. And to be really honest, it's because I've built the muscle of it. So
Yeah.
I can be out for a walk now and I can be like, oh, look at that amazing, beautiful flower. Isn't that nice? 5 years ago, I would never have been able to do that. I was like so rushed and so on autopilot and so thinking about, what the next thing was I had to achieve that I wasn't noticing the world around me. What is not necessarily clear about these practices is there a skill to build and you have to do them over time to know if they're going to work. I'm just going to write in my gratitude journal for like a week and it's going to fix everything. It's a practice like learning to exercise. You're building muscles in your brain. So I am a believer in gratitude and I think if you do it long enough and start to realize that it's about the small things, not the big things, you then notice them in everyday life. It's so much more peaceful when you realize that you're surrounded by great, beautiful things all the time.
Yeah. What's a project or an engagement that you've had with the school that you're most proud of? Tell me about some of the success stories. I'm sure there's so
It's
many. Yeah, but
yeah, it's I do get asked that question a bit, and I could never pick a school, I could never pick anything, but I really do value I think the people that are ready to think differently, like
Yeah.
they know they're ready for it, and they know that things can be better, not because they're falling apart, but just because they're willing to try different things. When leaders sit around a table and go, tell me like your biggest, craziest ideas or the boldest things that you've seen others people do, or what's happening in other industry we might be able to borrow. I think when I come across people who are like really ready to push boundaries and who are willing to take risks, knowing that they might not work or they might have a great impact, that's the best piece of work for me to do, where we get to play and experiment. And I think where not just leaders, but everyone in that in the school environment are working together, and they know that if it doesn't work, they're not attached to the outcome. They're
Yeah.
just going to try something different.
Yeah.
That's the really cool work.
What advice would you have for people that work in leadership teams that are not supportive and not excited about change? What are some of the conversations that we can have to start shifting that? Because I mean, I have the privilege of working with just an amazing, amazing executive team, but I haven't always had that privilege in other schools. So how do we begin as agents of change around your work? How do we begin to start that conversation and nudge it towards where it needs to go?
Yeah, I mean, the first thought I had in my head was, you don't really have a choice, you have to do it. Like the stats aren't good.
Yeah,
We've got to
that's
do something different. What got us here is not going to get us out of it, right?
yeah.
And I really do think we just can't continue to try and fill the holes in education with the same old things we've been doing. Whether it's something like we've got a teacher shortage, let's just find more teachers. I know that sounds good. Like I know that sounds like the logical answer, but is it really? Maybe we need to rethink what education is. And so I think the same is to be said for leadership teams or people who are like, this work is fluff. Like, what's the
Mhm.
point of it? It's actually about embedding how we work in a way that is sustainable and supportive of get people to do the job you're wanting them to do anyway. Like I promise you, I don't go into schools and be like, we're going to figure out how to put on a morning tea every week, and then we're going to get a yoga teacher in, and we're going to do less work. It's actually about knowing, how do we have really high standards here? What are we doing that says this makes us a great school? Where is our feedback, our accountability, our professional standards, our performance and growth? And this is what leaders actually want. But when we do that through a lens of supporting well-being, because we have clarity, we have clear systems, we have clear processes, we set people up for success, we're actually going to become schools that have high well-being with high-performing professionals, and that is only going to benefit students. And right now, there's a little bit of tension around, oh, well, if we do staff well-being, we can't have high performance. We've got to have, I'm seeing it quite a bit. It's people before performance, it's connection before compliance, it's people and performance, it's connection and compliance. It's no good having a workplace of great people if they're all underperforming,
Mm.
or having great connection with your colleagues but we're not being compliant. And I think this is why sometimes leaders go, oh, staff well-being, like we can't touch it, we're not going to do it. It's the lack of understanding and perhaps some of the messaging out there that says, well, if we really care for our people, we shouldn't really be, talking to them about XYZ or going to meetings, we should be doing less work. It's the messaging and the understanding of what drives high well-being that needs to be really understood. And when you can see that that is connected with what you want to have happen in your school anyway, it just makes sense to do it.
Yeah, I think that's really true, Amy. It's your work has really made me think about the unique role that leaders play in setting standards and supporting well-being and connecting with staff and students. I know when I step out of my office door, I could have 150 kids come up to me, which represents two parents each, sometimes even larger families that might have 300 parents that might want to make a phone call. And it's just, it can sometimes be a little bit overwhelming. But I love when what you talked about before about those small moments. And you were saying when you go for a walk, you've trained yourself to notice those things. And one of the things that I've started doing after reading your book is just to walk a little bit slower and to, instead of dashing and rushing through the corridors, walking slower, looking at kids, connecting with them. And it was a really lovely reminder that your work reminded me that this is why we're here. Like we are in the human connection business, whether
Mm.
small people or big people, our job is to connect and build those meaningful relationships. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, Amy, on what are some of the practical things that leaders can do day to day to help build thriving school cultures. Is it just slowing down? Is it remembering birthdays? Like, what are some of the things that we can do to start sending those very important messages?
Yeah, I think it's It's definitely finding the balance between how do you maintain the work that you need to do whilst also
Mhm.
being out about in front for the people that you connect with, whether it's other educators, whether it's teams you're leading, whether it's students. Because I don't want to undermine or deny the fact that you've got a lot of work to do. School leaders have got a lot of work to do.
Yeah.
And leading well-being is one element of that. And I think sometimes we're looking for, do I have to be in the staff room every break time? Do I have to go and say hi to everyone every morning? Do I have to make sure I remember their kids' birthdays and send them a card? Like, I don't know. And it's not 10 things to go and do, but I think there are some fundamentals. I think definitely ensuring that your people that you lead, the people that you work with, know you're a real person. We often think about it in terms of to lead well-being, I have to make it about them. But you're a person in this as well. Like they want to see you as a real person. So I had a school leader ask me recently, but what am I supposed to do when I'm having a really rough day? Like I've got to go out there and put a smile on my face and just keep going. And I said, but you don't. Like you can say to your teams or to your colleagues, guys, I'm having a pretty rough day today. Like if I'm not myself, I've just got some home stuff going on, I'll be totally fine. But if I seem a bit short or distant, it's not you, it's me. That is practicing and demonstrating vulnerability. We want the people we work with and those we lead to do that so we can support them. We have to be willing to do that as well. We have to be willing to say things like, I got that wrong. I'm really sorry. Or I don't know. Let's work it out together. Yes, there are like I think yes, being in the staff room or going around at lunchtime, saying hi to people, all of those things really matter. But ask yourself, what type of school do you want to create to ensure that well-being is optimal, and start practicing that with those around you so that they can see it's safe to do it as well.
Yeah, I think in my early years of leadership, I thought I had to have it all together. And then you realize that you're just doing a terrible job and you're not fooling anyone. Like everyone knows that you're crying in your car. Like it's really hard.
Yeah.
And so I think as I've become more confident or grown into the role, I think I'm more willing to show a bit more vulnerability. And it's really important because we would expect that of our teams, but we also need to model that. And I think we need to provide the environment in which it's safe to do so. You talk so much about leaders being bold and brave. What does courageous well-being leadership look like?
I think it's being prepared to
Love
push the
that. Yeah.
boundaries, yeah, and not do things the way they've always been done.
Right.
Like, how guilty are we of going to report season every year? Reports are coming, it's going to be really stressful, it's going to be really intense, like have extra coffee, here's some extra chocolate, da 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 da. Why are we doing that?
Yeah.
Why are we
Yeah.
repeating, yeah, the same thing every year? Like, if we know it's stressful, maybe we need to rethink the model. And I have some schools playing with the idea of doing things like having our semester one reports, some end of term two, where you're trying to cram it all in and teach at the same time and plan for your next units of work coming up in term three, so you can crash and burn in holidays and hopefully recover. They are looking at providing the option for staff, if they want to be able to write their reports in their term break so that they're not trying to do them in term two and then they go out in term three. Right now, so some people are like, you can't do that. Like that doesn't work in the EBA. That's not how it is. Blah, blah. And I'm always like, remember the EBA and things are there to ensure we're protected. They're not rules. Like it's not a checklist. And if it's an option and people want to do it and they're willing to do it, then give it as an option. And if people want to take it up, they can take it up. Now, interestingly, in some of these schools where we're talking and testing and collecting some data, it does seem to be mostly younger teachers who want to take this option up. It seems to be those that are used to working in intense terms and then having this 2 week break to, get themselves back together. It's harder for them to break that mold of
Yeah.
thinking. And I
Yeah.
get it. Like that's how you've known it for 20 or 30 years. But this is what thinking boldly looks like. It's going, hang on, why are we doing it like this? And what is the other option? We can so quickly think there is no option because this is just always how it's been.
Yeah.
There are many other options.
Yeah. Are there any other bold questions that you think that you would like schools to ask about well-being and about school culture?
I think every time I would, what I encourage schools to do is almost like a decision audit, right? So
Love
write down everything you're making a decision for, and it is way more than you think. It's
Yeah.
school newsletters that go out, it's bell times, it's how classes are organized, it's non-contact time, communication with staff, and I guess that goes back to your question around what people don't know school leaders do. So many things that you would think is decided for us, like our newsletter template or uniform policy, we do that in-house. Like it's a massive
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
So all of those decisions that we make, all of those things we have to do, Spend some time with your leadership team or staff, write them all down, and then ask yourself, why are we doing it? Like, what is the purpose of it? And does it still serve a purpose? Or are we doing it because we've always done it? We've been doing it for 10 years and we haven't actually stopped to ask if this purpose still matters. What's the
Well,
impact of doing it? Is it having an impact or not? Does it have to be like that?
I did that once. I took that idea and just for one day wrote down every decision that I had to make, which was just related to there was no teaching on that day. It was just related to my role as a school leader. And it started off as a blank A3 piece of paper and very quickly filled up. And it was a reminder just, there's no surprise why school leaders are so overwhelmed because the amount of decisions that you have to make every day is overwhelming. But it's so great to hear some of the strategies you talk about. And I love that your work empowers teachers and school leaders to take back a little bit of that control. You're right, the system's not going to change, but we can help build some strategies that really protect ourselves and really help and support our well-being. Just a couple more questions, if you don't mind. If there's, and I'm sure there are, if there's an overwhelmed and stressed leader listening to our conversation, what advice would you give them in terms of beginning to move out of that challenge?
Yeah, my answer, I know you'll probably want to punch me in the face, but breathe. Like you have to learn to breathe
I
and
was
you
going to
have
say
to learn
buy
to
the
breathe
book.
properly.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Please.
Yeah. No one told me that. I was having burnout and episodes in my car in 2017, 2018. No one was talking about breathing
Yeah,
then.
it's
We
true.
weren't doing it. Everyone's talking about it now. And so it's become a message that has become really loud and sometimes undervalued because of that. But hear me out. Slow your breath so you can slow your thoughts. When we are breathing fast and we're rushing, you can't hear yourself think, or
Mm,
all you can hear is your loudest voice, and it's not going to be the most helpful.
yeah.
So you need to slow yourself right down and you need to check in with what's going on. Like that's how you're going to tune into where this might be coming from and why. And then from a practical sense, I'd be pretty confident that if you listed all the things you were trying to do, you don't need to do all of them. I had a really, really hard time when I was coming out of chronic stress, being able to decide what mattered. So I would write my to-do list out and then I would put it into three categories. To be really honest, I used to do this with my deputy in the beginning because I just couldn't do it for myself. What do I absolutely have to do like this week? What are my must do's this week? What would I like to do if I get time, but I could move? And then what is on the list that I've just made up that doesn't really need to happen? That's
Wow.
it.
Yeah,
I still do that now.
I mean that's so profound because just because what I'm learning is just because you get a request from someone to do something, it doesn't mean that it needs to be done. And it also doesn't mean that you're the best person to do it. Like there
Mm,
are some people, I work with some phenomenal educators that are experts in areas that I am not. And so it just doesn't make sense for me to be doing some of those things when we can lean onto the into the expertise of our teams. I think that's
mm.
hugely important. And Amy, final question. What advice would you say to somebody that just doesn't know what to do? They're sitting, maybe crying in their car, struggling to walk through the door. What would be I mean, you've mentioned controlling breathing, but how do we ask for help if we need it?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, look, we know there are services and you can go to your GP and you can do
Yeah.
all of those things, but I would say lean on the people around you. And, if it's a work thing, be prepared to have a really uncomfortable conversation. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can't name it and face it, you can't change it. And there is this saying that says sometimes we do more to avoid pain than have pleasure. And it's not going to be easy, but somewhere along the way, like I promise you, it gets better. But you've also got to know where you want to go
That's
and
right.
where you want to head. So when you can, when you're in the space, in my first book, there's an activity, I think it's the end of like chapter one, maybe, called Your Ideal Average Day. It takes you through the steps and the questions to think about, which is really like, you know what, we've got to do life. We've got to go to work. We've got to pick our kids up if you have them. You've got to cook dinner. Life is full of mundane things. We've just been told that it should be more exciting than this. It's not. It's not more exciting than this. Like this is as good as it gets. And that is actually great. Like there's some great things in our day. So if
Yeah.
we learn to identify the small moments that make up the day of the average day, and you can ask yourself what you want that to look like, then you can start to co-construct and design your life that meets your reality, not some version of reality you're seeing online and you're thinking, oh, I wish my life looked like that. That's no one's version of life. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I think there's a real beauty in those mundane things. In
Yeah,
fact, I think the mundane things are the truly special things.
that's
And for me, getting to sit on the couch with my wife and having a conversation, or getting to sit with a kid and help them with their writing,
love it.
like it's so important. And I think a life is made up of a series of small decisions each day. And I love going back to what you're saying before about the importance of just slowing down and noticing moments,
Yeah.
because life is it's a gift. It's a really special gift. Amy, I can't thank you enough for your time. It has been absolutely, I can't believe it's been almost an hour.
Yeah.
It's been just so lovely to reconnect. I'm such a fan of what you do, and it's great to see just how much good you're putting out into the world. So thank you for doing that. There's a generation of school leaders and teachers that really need the work that you're doing. So please keep it up. We really need it.
Oh, thank you so much. Look, it's an honor always to chat to you and talk about not just my work, or my book, but also the little gems along the way that we feed in and share. So I really appreciate the time that you've given as well.
Thank you.